Have you ever kept a secret for someone else that you didn't need to? If you haven't, good, don't do that. But if you have, I know what that's like now. For the past year and a half, almost two now, I've been keeping a secret that I didn't need to for someone else's sake. And that someone else was someone very close to me, as was the person who hurt me. At no point was I supported enough to even be incentivized to keep a secret for them, but I did out of loyalty that I didn't need to have because they didn't have any for me. I think I was just too naive to see that. By the time I did realize that it was too late to do anything like for me to help myself. I hope what I'm saying is making sense. I don't know. Maybe talking about it will make me feel less alone. For the past year, I like to call it brain broken, but I try not to joke about it too much because I don't think it's like healthy. I haven't been too well, and it's frustrating because it feels like completely preventable causes. If you've followed me for any amount of time, you may notice that my posts are very sporadic, and it's not just like, I don't know, I'm doing stuff, but the things I was known for, like drawing, I all of a sudden just didn't have time to do that anymore. People noticed and were asking me like, why aren't you drawing anymore? What are you doing? And like, why are you traveling so much? And I couldn't answer them at the sake of someone else. I've been talking amongst like my close friends and stuff about this for so long, but actually like saying it makes it feel really real. So it's kind of hard to do. I'm gonna try and word this like anybody who's watching this doesn't know anyone. I'll try and explain everyone. I was dating an artist named Don who was the channel artist for SuperMega, and we had been dating on and off since like 2017, maybe 2 years total. It was pretty scattered, but he's a Twitter artist like I met him when we weren't dating in 2018, the same time I met Matt and Ryan. In November of 2021, I met him for the first time like while we were dating. Don, that is, at Matt's house. He invited us both over at the same time. I think it was for the SuperMega book. We both did art on it, and he wanted to celebrate the book coming out. And so in November, Matt's house is pretty big. It's like got like 3 extra rooms plus a living room you can sleep in. Context for later. Don and I stayed there together in the same room, in the room that I would usually stay at Matt's when I would stay at his place. This was, like I said, the first time I had met Don while we were dating, and I'd stayed at Matt's plenty before, but I was always by myself in that room, so this time it was with him. It was pretty normal, like that day. Was just happy to get to see him. I don't know why, and he told me he didn't know why either, but since he lived in Germany, our only method of talking was Discord. And he didn't like talking to me one-on-one, so I'd have to talk in like his friends' group chats to talk to him all the time, so we weren't like as close, really. It was kind of weird getting to see him in person. I didn't like hold anything against him. I was just happy to see him. But I don't know. I guess I say that because a lot of what is wrong in this story is that I'm a people pleaser, and I'm not blaming myself for any of this, but I don't know. I just need to say it. The first night, like, that I had met him as a boyfriend after all that, and like not really being that close with him. The first night that we like say goodnight to everyone else at Matt's house, I think it was just Matt at this point. Don sexually assaulted me. He like physically was like forcing me, like attempting to physically force me to give him oral, and the only reason why it didn't work was because I like physically like pushed him away multiple times. When you're in a long distance relationship with someone, you have to get to know someone. Like, I feel like I'm a pretty direct person, and aside from what the situation is like turned me into, I guess, but I feel like when this happened, I was like, especially this particular situation, I was like, no, I don't want to do this. And he kept telling me like, just do it. And like multiple times while he was like trying to force my head down. And he's like way bigger than me. I don't know. I was really freaked out after that. So eventually he let me go, but I just kind of shut down and just went with like whatever else he wanted that night, and like for the rest of the trip, I didn't know what to do in that situation. Calling the cops is like what somebody would say, right? But like it's a guy from Germany. How is that gonna work? Like I know that they can go to jail, but like actually like getting someone in trouble would just be a whole like thing. I didn't want to deal with that. And it was at my friend's house, and I was scared that like somebody may have like would like find his address or something if like if I like called. Like I don't know. All these were just thoughts like after too, because in the moment I was just like I kind of just shut down. I was freaked out. I remember after I like went with the other stuff he wanted to do, he like choked me on my windpipe. Like he was like trying to choke me in a sexy way, but he was like choking me, and I was like breathing like very audibly, like not well. And I think at this point I was too scared to like say anything, and I didn't think he would listen because he just didn't before. So at that point it was just easier to do whatever else he wanted instead of go through that again. The next day, pretty early in the day, context, for a while, Donna had been trying to get a green card to live in the US, and since we were dating, he had for a while been hinting that like it would be easier if we just got married for him to come live in the US, and it had been going on for a bit now. And that day, Don had been talking about it with me. He had been asking SuperMega about filing papers to get a green card. And Matt, at least I know Matt, I'm sure Brian too, SuperMega in general, had no interest in doing that for him. But they never, up until this point, never told him no straight out. Never was like, yeah, we're not doing that. They would just give reasons why it was really hard or really expensive to do that. So once again, he asked Matt, and him and I were walking up the stairs to Matt's living room, and Matt responded something along the lines of like, why don't you guys just get married? To which Dawn seemed like reciprocal to the idea. I don't know how to describe what it feels like to have someone go from not interested in talking to you like on a daily basis, like one-on-one, or like spending like alone time with you, to but like still being very sexually interested in you. Like they still want to have like nudes from you and stuff and all that fun stuff that having a girlfriend is, but not actually like talking to you. It feels weird to go from that to, after hearing that conversation, just the amount of affection and like references to that. It was a lot to process, and I had no alone space to do that in. It was a lot. Gonna find a drawing I did the second day I was there, and at the time when I drew it, I didn't know why I'd drawn it. I had no idea why I was drawing vent art. The vape says copium. I know it's really corny. There's a point that I didn't show anybody, right? Like it wasn't supposed to be for artistic value, and at the time I just didn't get it. The other thing that happened that day, or the day after, was that I was sitting next to Don on the couch talking to him. I asked him to look something up, and he pulls out his phone next to me, and the first Google like past search result before he like starts typing in too many words is an artist sex worker's, like a mutual of ours, OnlyFans leak. She's kind of a similar build to me, so I'm like double hurt because my self-esteem has been destroyed the night I got there. I got upset at him before we dated the time then. He had essentially used me for nudes. I had a not safe for work Patreon, and he used to sub to it when we weren't dating anymore. And so I kept like a boundary with him over it, because I was mad at him. Not necessarily mad at him, but he was my ex. I didn't want to talk to him. And gradually he like pushed that boundary over. It's my fault for not having any. I think he also knew that he could. He like unsubbed from my Patreon at one point when we were talking normally enough, and he like would message me and ask me if it would be okay if I would send him like the files from the Patreon. And I would be like, you mean like the old ones that you're sub to? And he was like, no, like new ones, or like all of them. I didn't want to, but my boundaries were so poor. I said, yeah, anyway. Like at this point, we had talked enough that I thought he liked me. So I was trying not to assume poorly of him, because I just genuinely didn't think he would do that. And then he did. So he was like letting me leak my own nudes to him and then looking up a mutual's nudes of someone who looks very similar. So at that point, after what had happened, I just kind of, I don't know, I felt kind of soulless at that point. You know how there's fight, flight, or fawn? I think I did fawn. I'm looking this up. I don't want to fuck this up. Fawn, people pleaser, lack of identity, no boundaries, overwhelmed, codependent. Yep. So I was doing that over time. That whole stay at Matt's was a lot. We had a Thanksgiving party, and unfortunately, that was like the last time we were all together and like happy. Like all the SuperMega people, all the employees, including Jackson, which, if you are unfamiliar with SuperMega, he stole like $90,000 of company money by just using the card. I was at Matt's house when he found that out in February, the following February. Oh, we did the podcast. Me and Don. Well, Don did it twice. I was in the other room when Don did the podcast, which I thought was weird. And then the day or two after, it was my turn. If you've listened to that podcast, if I remember correctly, I'm mostly just talking to them. But I think if you want to go back to the fawn thing, that's probably also why I was fine, because I had been wanting to do it. I wanted to do it by myself. If you've watched that or listened to that podcast, there's a part in it where Don starts telling a story, context to do with me or something. There was a sentence where he starts to say something. From having known him on and off for like 4 years, I knew that he was gonna say something about us dating. And even though I had wanted that before this trip in November of 2021, I'd asked him multiple times, like, do you want to be public about this? Because we had been before. So I just didn't think of it as a big deal. And he didn't want to, would still draw me art, but only send it to me. So I got a really bad feeling when he started to bring it up. Mind you, I hadn't processed what he had done yet at all, really, besides the fact that I knew he did what I told him not to do, and it made me not feel good. So if I knew he was about to announce, or like not announce, or like casually mention that we were dating in a podcast, wouldn't I want him to mention that? Like of course I would, right? But instead, I interrupt him. I interrupted him, and I made him stop, and I told him, like, I just made a joke or something. I think I said, like, I'm going to kill you. If you are somebody that likes their podcast or have watched it before, give a shit, you can go find it. There's a part where Don just stops talking. And with this context, if you listen back to it, I think it makes sense. I remember being so anxious. I feel like I was having, like, a mini panic attack or something. I was really bad at talking. It was like an exercise. So I was having fun, but after when that happened, I like took over the conversation basically. So he couldn't get a word in, but he stopped trying to talk anyway. I don't know. Like I said, if I hadn't registered at all, like that something was going on yet, fully, like that something was wrong. I mostly wanted to mention that because I wanted to mention something outside of myself for reference. By the time that trip was over, talking about it now just has me now processing it, I think. From what he did to me, I just kind of felt used, so I just kind of felt cool with being treated like however, so I feel like I stopped noticing when people were being, like, I feel like I don't do that as well anyway, but this was, like, worse. Like, I just was like, oh, they mean well. And from like November on, it only got worse, which is really hard when it has to do with people you trust. Honestly, from like November to when I stopped talking to Don, I just kind of did whatever he wanted. When we hung out in November, we started calling one-on-one a little bit more, and then it tapered off again up until around April when we were planning on meeting each other for Creator Clash. Then we started calling again, and I was thinking to myself all the time that I knew like he was just using me. And I feel like a 90-day person when I say this, but like either like for sex or a green card or both. I just feel like I fit into his plan, and it's less so about me, but I just looks like a girl that he would like. Half his OCs look like me. His cassette girl character is referenced by me. He like told me this himself. He came up with her while we weren't dating, and just made a character that looked pretty close to how he drew me, and made her smoke cigarettes instead of weed. So I feel like he was obsessed with like the idea of me, but when I would talk, he just wouldn't listen. Like he didn't actually like me. My home life during this whole period, the last year, has been very not good. So stuff that happened outside the home was really hard to bring back in and process. I had a full load of stress at home, and that was the reason why I was going to Matt so much. I mean, he was inviting me, so it was nice that I was making friends because I didn't have many in Nashville. When he invited me for February, on his birthday, like I said earlier before I cut myself off, I was excited about hanging out with him, so I came. And at this point, I think he's already started training for Creator Clash, and he's like getting wasted like every time I come over. I think he likes me coming over because I took care of him, but I had fun doing it. Like, I'm smiling about it now. I saw him like a brother. Like, I'm not trying to even say all of this in slash neg. It's not good behavior. Like, you know, when you see it, you have a friend that's like making bad decisions, you try and be that person like, hey, you should probably like take care of yourself, you have obligations, or like, you know, don't do this, or like, I don't know. In January, the epic SMP happened, the Minecraft thing happened. I was at Matt's during that time as well, streaming. There's VODs of those, but it's mostly just me wandering Don around trying to get him to talk to me, because at this rate he wasn't like hanging out with me still. Last time I mentioned it was in January. Man, being with him destroyed my self-esteem. This conversation is actually during Minecraft SMP. I said, maybe next time we have alone time might be a good idea to play something else. Or not, I'm not the boss of you. I suggest playing something because that was the only way he would talk to me. He said, yes, I'm sorry. No, like, yeah. Next time I should really just let alone time be alone time. And I said, I often feel like I have to compete with others for your attention. Not your fault, really. My brain was so rotted, dude. Normal boyfriend things. I really liked talking to you today. Okay. Yeah, because like I was so defeated. I was just like, okay. I think I understand why all of what 2022 happened, I let happen, because I'd been with Don for so long that I just accepted any sort of like positivity, even if it was at like my own detriment. That meaning like not ever bringing up stuff hard. Like if you bring up something and they ignore it and like reply to everything else, just not bringing it up anymore. Like I would just do that all the time. Not sure if anyone can relate to that. I mentioned explicitly about how it would remind me of, quote, the thing with group calls where I'd hop in just to spend time with you and I'd actually not be interested in socializing with other people. And it just like unaddressed. I haven't been on one-on-one calls in a while, so I need to get used to not having multiple people talk. And I'm just saying stuff like, I'm probably not that fun to talk one-on-one for long, but I'd at least just like a little time alone every now and then. I won't bother you too much about it. Normal girlfriend things to say. Yeah, I felt like a piece of meat because I was just useful for like gaming and having sex with in person. Me and Modest Cube were staying at Matt's place around his birthday time, and we're the first two people to know besides Matt and Ryan, I'm pretty sure. I ended up telling Don before Matt's lawyer even had a chance to tell Matt that he shouldn't tell his other employees. So he got a little upset with me and was like, just don't tell anybody else. And I didn't. Even around the time when Leighton was working there, because I had known him since he started working there, even I didn't tell him. And we had been friends since he started, like, immediately. But it never felt like things were the same after that. Part of why it's taken me a year and a half to even say anything is because, like, I had only just until recently had time to even process all of this. So apologies. Yeah, I stayed home in April to save up money for Creator Clash. So at this point, I'd made plans with multiple friends to get an Airbnb for outside Tampa. I, being in Nashville, am far enough that I could just drive. I had a few friends fly to Nashville because it was cheaper, and then we all drove down to Tampa. During all that planning, I made it a point to make sure that Don was going to stay with us because that something feels wrong. Feeling never went away. And I was starting to put pieces together what it was, and it was getting too hard to like hold on and not talk about because I hadn't told anyone. It felt like a lie to me. I don't know why. It's funny. It's 10 years ago this year. I had actually called someone out before. I did it a bit over a year after it happened because I also didn't process it, but it was also with an ex-boyfriend. I was 17 and he was 21, and I also told him no the whole time and he still kept going. So it felt like I was like reliving something I'd gone through before. And when that happened, I was somebody who posted art onto Facebook at the time, so that was like my online presence. And we had a lot of mutual friends, and so I was scared of him, and I mustered up the courage to like talk about what happened because I had watched him for long enough that I was like, I don't think he's different. I don't think, because he apologized to me when it happened and all that, but nothing ever changed. I could just tell nothing was different. And after I had not been with him anymore, he was still like just very creepy with other people in the same way he was with me. This was 2013, I think. Yeah. I had friends I was friends with for years choose him over me. There was a few friends that I trusted that I told in private. They were like, oh, damn, that sucks. And then they would still hang out with him. And it made me feel unsafe, and I didn't know how to word that, but I was asking them. I would ask them, like, why. They just wouldn't know what to say and just would stop talking to me. Or, like, be like, I don't believe you. Like, it turns out they were being my friend and then didn't believe me or something. I had people quote retweeting, resharing, whatever it is on Facebook. That post that I made, since it was public, like, people I wasn't friends with but were friends with him, saying I had never even gone to New York to see him. When I had pictures of me there. And when I would, like, respond with them, they'd block me. There's just so many people that did not know me at all saying I was lying. And mind you, this was before talking about sexual assault was like a normal thing to do in media at all, or like the Me Too thing or anything. I don't know if it would have even helped. Not that it would have, but it just I found out years later that the person that shared the post that said I didn't even go there also got groomed by them because they were like 16. All that context just because of all that happened. What I did know what was wrong was that I didn't feel good, and I was pretty sure I knew why. And the other thing I was sure was that I didn't want to go through that again. So when I was planning on having him come to the Airbnb, my thought process was, if I could just talk to him in real life about this, there wouldn't be a need to do any of this. He lives in Germany. I live in the South at this point. You just have to go so out of the way to like bump into each other that way that there was no harm in me just like pulling him aside at some point and being like, hey, you remember this? It wasn't cool. Let's not talk anymore, or whatever, whatever line of dialogue. So it's not something that's screenshotable, something that other people can like speculate or be like, that's fake, or I didn't want people doing that to me again. I don't know. I'm a big boy or whatever, but the whole time leading up, it was pretty easy to detach from Don already to like process because he didn't call that much or didn't want to. So that was fine. We started to more, but I feel like at that point it was just kind of to keep tabs and like kind of confirm my reality of like, is this actually going on or not? Rather than it was to actually like spend time with him at this point. If you've ever been with like someone that has abused you, especially when you've been with someone for years, it's hard to just kind of be like, all right, bye. I didn't owe him anything, but I felt like maybe it was self-preservation, but I wanted to just it to be clean and just be like, all right, we're done. That's it. I've known for a while, but now you do, kind of thing. Because I had intended on it for a while, like cutting off contact with him because I realized it was like not good for me. But getting the idea and building intention, two different things. Building intention takes time. So it came with the B&B. I came with my friends. And then it was me, my friend, and Ethan. And after Creator Clash, it was also Rav. So I had plenty of people to like surround myself with between me and him for the time of the Airbnb until the last day, basically. I was just kind of feeling out the vibes when it happened, but like when we were there on when to tell him, but I ended up telling him like the day before he left. The Airbnb had lots of rooms, so I stayed away from him the whole time and just kept my distance. I didn't want anything to seem like anything's wrong because I didn't see the point in freaking Dawn out and have like 4 days of him left there and have nowhere to go. Like someone could be like, he doesn't deserve it or whatever, but I didn't want to do that. So I waited till the last day. Well, the day before Creator Clash, is they had a gala. Everybody was congregated over there. And at one point, like during, it was the weigh-in, not the gala, it was the weigh-in. I don't exactly remember how or why, but I come out from the room of the weigh-in and Don has a giant nosebleed all over his shirt, all over his white shirt. And I just get the worst vibes ever. That was like when he started feeling like I didn't want to be around him because I was like, I would say that it was on purpose, but a lot of times it wasn't. There was just so many people that it was kind of hard to keep track if somebody wasn't like following you. So I genuinely didn't think he cared. So I got really freaked out when he started getting freaked out. Like I was like fucked up in the head and all I cared about was like other people's comfort. I don't know. We visited a couple beaches and stuff. At the second beach we went to, everybody's hanging out at the beach all day. Like it was the longest day we had at the beach. And like on the way back before we go get a hotel room, Don's like talking to Ethan and like mentions that we're dating. And so after that conversation, he comes over to me and he was like, "You guys are dating?" And my like stomach sank because I was like, I gotta talk to you about this thing because it's not normal to like have someone have to tell you that. And then I don't know, I've never been in that situation before, you know. I didn't expect to tell anyone besides Dawn. I mean, what was I gonna do, lie? It wasn't even like an option in my head. I didn't know what to say besides just say like, hey, this thing happened a few months ago, because at this point in May it was only like it was about half a year. It was just like, this is one of the few moments where I actually have like photos of that exact moment, because around this time in my life I was just like, I've been traveling a lot more than I'd ever, and I've always traveled a lot, so I just would take photos of stuff like mundanely with no intention of posting them. Most of my photos I don't. Anyway, here's like right as that conversation. I talked to him for a little bit. I'll show you a picture of the beach because it was pretty. I only care so much about those pictures because this place got destroyed in Hurricane Ian. So yeah, after I told Ethan, it was too far to drive back to Tampa that night, and it was too late at that point. So we got a nearby hotel, and rooming arrangements were very hectic, and nobody knew who they were staying with. And I was really freaked out from having had that conversation. The like realness of everything set in after I had told someone else. I sat in the car for a long time scared because I was like thinking that, well, I don't want to go in that room with Dawn because there was like 3 or 4 separate rooms between everybody that was in the car. And that's actually Dawn's last messages to me on Twitter is this. That was a bad night. I was just kind of hiding in the parking lot hoping everyone would go to sleep and not find me. I'd had like a script in my head written for the whole trip, and then once it got broken, everything got way too real, I guess. I thought that how I was doing things was like the best way to do it, but I don't know. It didn't like foil my plans or anything. I still got to tell him. It was just, it added a lot of anxiety that I didn't have because I hadn't gotten to process it. If you've ever been abused physically, sexually, telling someone else, like verbally, it makes it feel so much more real that it can make you feel completely different than how you did before, and it's very jarring. So I was dealing with that. I felt like I had like shell shock or something, and I couldn't get away from the person that I had this realization that I was like really messed up by. But I don't think we stayed much longer after that. I stayed with Ethan that night, and the next morning, I have a picture of that. That's me with my stuff about to go drive back to Tampa. So there was only one more day after this trip, and that day Ryan was still healing from his fight in Creator Clash, and I kind of skipped over them from Creator Clash. I picked Matt and Ryan up from the airport. Like I planned a lot of my trip around like making sure I could help them just because I wanted to. Makes me feel silly. but we didn't really get to hang out with him that much after Creator Clash. And since he was healing and like healed enough to be okay, we invited him over and we smoked and hung out at the Airbnb on the last day. And I cooked everybody steak. And then by the time all this was over, everybody was pretty tired, so everybody went home or went to sleep pretty quickly. And it was after that I told Don, I pulled him aside. We went on a walk around the neighborhood the Airbnb was in. The way I told him was basically, I was basically like, hey, do you remember November when we first hung out? And he was like, yeah. I basically asked him questions that necessitated him saying yes or no to, because I wanted it to be easy for me and I wanted it to be easy for him because I didn't want it to take too long. I didn't think it needed to for me to tell him the way I was going to tell him. So I said, you remember the first night when you were like pushing my head down and I was telling you no? Yes, he says. Basically, he like didn't dispute anything that I said. He was just saying yes. And I was like, you know, that's sexual assault, right? Like, you can't do that to people. Like, that wasn't cool that you did that to me. I've been like really like messed up that you did that. I like have to like get better from this. This is something that I'm like having to recover from because it's making me not well. Like, basically explained to him all but like a baby that sexual assault is bad and that what he did was that and that you can't do it. Because all it would have taken is for me to have been like, no, I don't want to, and for him to stop, but he didn't. Nonetheless, so I say all this and he says, so does that mean you're breaking up with me? And I was like, what? Yeah. To me it was like, yeah, no. And that, out of everything I said, was both the shortest response I had to say, or like the shortest thing I had to say to him, and the most devastating. We're on a sidewalk, like we're walking, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be with you. And he stops directly under the streetlight and does this for like a minute in front of me. I don't know. It felt so performative. And maybe he was actually sad. I'm sure he was bummed out at least, but I don't know. That it was so surreal. I like considered taking a picture of him, but I was like, that's not morally right to do. I'm just making very light of like a shitty conversation, honestly. The next day, the Airbnb was up for me, so I got to drive back home. Don went to stay with his artist friends that lived nearby. And so my impression was that Creator Clash is over. Don's gonna go back to Germany soon after he's done hanging out with his Florida friends. And then, even though the conversation was weird, I won't have to see him again now. And I can like actually process stuff, or at least have a chance to. And, time after I get home is rough. The time right before Creator Clash, I found out my dog, Teddy, he had a mouth tumor, and it was getting pretty bad pretty quickly. And the whole time I was at Creator Clash was like while that was ongoing, because my mom didn't want to put him down without me there. We weren't sure if he was gonna make it. And after I got back from Creator Clash, he had more vet appointments where we found out that he wasn't gonna make it. And I don't know, because of everything going on, I never really had time to grieve it. For the night of Creator Clash, a party happens at Critical's lounge, like G Fuel lounge, and that night was when I met Rav. I met him while babysitting Matt, basically. Here's a picture with them. I posted a cute picture of us, but this is like how like half the pictures are. But like, there was a girl there who he was like going around to people and being like, you see her? She's a porn star. She got famous because she looks like me. And like, me and Rav essentially become his like babysitters, because he's like the drunkest guy there the whole night. Every time we go up to him and we're like, hey, you should stop, he looks at us dead in the eye and takes another drink. And it's like funny the first couple of times, but then when he does it like 5 times in the same night, it's like freaky and you get worried for people's health. But we're like literally just trying to like keep him from like doing creep shit to people, because we didn't know what the fuck he was gonna do. So me and Rav bonded quite a bit very quickly. over being nanny. He didn't have anywhere to go. He just ended his tour like that day before he got there. So I was like, you should come stay with us. We have extra room. So while he was staying there, we were talking about our life situation, and it struck a chord with him, and he wanted to help me and said that he's moving to LA, and that I should go with him. I think it was before I left Tampa. I had already had a ticket to go stay with Ethan in NorCal. So when I got home after Creator Clash, I already had 2 different places to be. So when I got home and found out that my dog is gonna die, or like isn't gonna make it, I end up having to leave, I think a day or 2 before the vet had scheduling to cremate him, or to euthanize him and cremate him. So I missed the death of my dog by about 2 days, 2 or 3 days. So when I get to Modesto, because I'm like getting support, things seem kind of up, because at this point I'm thinking, not going to see Dawn again, moving out of my bad home situation. Obviously Ted's the bad thing, right? That's like, at that point, that is the bad thing happening to me. If you've ever lost a pet, or you have a pet and haven't lost it, you can imagine what I was going through. I was just like bedridden for a while. So there was a chunk of time, I want to say around a week after I got there, that I just didn't do that much. That and like mentally recovering from Creator Clash. And as that span of time occurred, every time I'd look on my phone, I'd notice things were going on in LA. Like, why is Dawn in LA? I thought he was going back to Germany. Turns out Matt invited Dawn to stay with him after Creator Clash, after he was done staying in Florida, and I think maybe somewhere else. It occurs to me that I'm gonna need to talk to more people about the Dawn thing, what happened with him, to give context to why I don't want to see him. Why would I ask my friend to make sure I don't see someone? It genuinely would have to be a good reason, and I thought it was, so that's why I just told them. I didn't feel comfortable, so I called Leighton first. I didn't know him nearly as long at all, but I feel like he had gone through, or has gone through enough, that him and I both talked about, that I know he would relate when I told him, or understand and believe me when I told him, without a doubt. So it was the least emotional burden for me to call him first, I guess. I did it to tell him too, because he's a friend to me, but I wanted to ask mainly about, how do you think Matt and Ryan's gonna take it, basically. And he assured me that they're gonna take this, he was for 100%, they're gonna take this seriously, definitely. There's no reason why they wouldn't. There's no way they would want to work with him after knowing that, and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, all right. I felt normal, you know what I mean? I felt validated, I guess. So I called Ryan, because I don't know, maybe I was scared to call Matt. I messaged Ryan and I said, hey, are you free for a call right now? At 10:30. I said, it's pretty late, so if not, it's fine. He said, sure, call if you want. Calling with Ryan made me feel even better, because he immediately apologized and was like, I'm so sorry that happened. So I hadn't gotten many reactions at all so far, so this was, at this point, a good one. He went into detail, just saying what he did was wrong, and he deserves to be held accountable for what he did. Stuff that you generally would want to hear, I think. I felt a lot better after I talked to him. I don't know why or how, but somehow I had no dialogue with Matt for 2 days after my call with Ryan, my call that made me feel a lot better. And my call with Matt was probably the worst thing I could have imagined. That's how the conversation went. He's apologizing about Teddy. I booked my flight, so I told him when. This is what he says after. Very nice words, right? I personally think him and Ryan did lots of talking before he decided to call me back, because his phone's with him all the time. He could have called me back at any point. I think by the time I got off the phone with Ryan, it was probably already too late for me to tell things how I wanted to, because it wasn't my choice anymore. I was getting asked about how things happened and stuff, very inquisitively, when I was on the phone with Ryan. And that was the one thing that I thought was weird, because if I believed someone, I wouldn't be asking that many questions. I'd just be I don't need graphic detail. It was a little weird. He lets me tell him what happened, as I told you. You know, for me, my perspective is this guy staying at your house. I'm coming to LA to stay at your office. He did this to me at your house. You deserve to know what he did, the guy staying at your place did to me at your house. Like, it just made sense to tell him more than anyone. So then when Matt calls me 2 days later, 2 nights later, I tell him what happens or what happened, and he tells me, oh man, this is a bummer. Like, this sucks. Like, right after the Jackson thing, this year is just so crazy already. Like, there's so much going on. And now this, let's not mince words here. I told him what happened, said what I said to you just now about how I think he deserved to know because it happened in his house. And I told him that I didn't want to see him because he's at his house. So I knew that if there's going to be anybody with the power to keep me from seeing Don in person again, it was him. So of course I'd tell him. I'm asking to like make sure this guy is physically removed from me when we hang out. And Matt, his response is immediately business with the Jackson mention. And then he says something insane that he would go on to repeat all summer to multiple people. He said to me after I told him about his friend that sexually assaulted me, his friend and employee, he said, SuperMega's my magnum opus, and I would hate for something to mess it up. He said that multiple times. I remember I was sitting on like the curb of the parking lot of where I was staying at the time outside, just like staring, because I never in a million years would have expected Matt, my friend Matt, to say something like that to me. It's like a switch flipped in him or something. Like, he just immediately became different. And I purposely told both of them, I'm calling you because I don't want this in a text. I don't want this screenshotable. I don't want this to be a big thing. I at least want the choice to have that, and I get the choice if it's not drama. I didn't want that, and I told them that, I made that clear, and I feel like they took advantage of that fully. They took advantage of how much they knew me to that point. Matt told me after the magnum opus thing, well, we'll make sure that you don't not get invited places because he's in town. Like, if we're like all doing something and he's in town, like, you'll definitely still get invited. Like, we'll still definitely invite you. And to all these things he said, I just didn't say much. And he just kept saying things. He was like, would it still bother you if we like still worked with him? And I started like being like, I don't know. That's not really my decision. I can't really tell you that because that's not what I was calling for it. He's an online Twitter artist. I would see him regardless. It's not about that. It's about me not seeing him in person so I can like relax and like process stuff. You know, I wasn't asking him to like kick him out and make him homeless. I just wanted him to like stay at Matt's or like don't bring him to the office if you know I'm there, basically. It wasn't like the hardest ask ever, but he acted like I was trying to make him go bankrupt because his like weird creepy employee that I dated like did crazy shit to me and tried forcing me to do stuff. And it just seemed like any possible way they could have made it to undermine that story, to downplay it, to make it not as big of a deal, they did. And it only got worse once I got there. Before I got there, what made me decide that I needed to not stay in Modesto and I needed to like immediately go to LA was this. Hey, you free on May 30th from Matt? I said, yeah, I just saw this. Call me if you wanna. Hey, sorry, I'll call tomorrow. We had a big talk with Don today, though. Just wanted to tell you about it. And I said, I figured that might have been what was up. Get some rest and we can call tomorrow. Okay. It was a good talk. It was weird because he gave me some of the same lines Ryan did about like give him a talk or something, but they both met up at Matt's house and Don thought it was business related since no one's ever raised a clue at this point that anything's wrong, even after I told them. And Don immediately asked about a green card. Like, can I get a visa? Or like, can you guys help me get a green card? And they were like, no. But they tried to like big bro him about sexual assault basically, but he didn't understand. Like, they weren't clear enough to say like what exactly they were talking about to begin with. And so they walked away from that conversation as if they got anything done when it didn't really do anything at all. Like, it seems like it just made Matt and Ryan feel better that they like did what they said they were going to do as far as like talking to him. But for all intents and purposes, like from them telling me and from Rav telling me, because he had been staying there ever since Creator Clash was over. We both had gathered that they basically wanted us to make up. They never told me this, but every action from them was masked as disciplinary, but it was more like scolding. Like, you're just like, man, you can't do that. That's really a big no-no. I don't know. I felt them downplaying it in real time, but I was across the state, like 5 hours away, and could do nothing about it. So that's when I decided I needed to be there. Matt had known since, or at least I told him, May 25th that I would be in town on the 14th. On the 13th at 9 p.m., he messages me this. Hey, can't wait to see ya. Just an update. Dawn is staying at the office with Rav right now. I did not know what the fuck to say, so all I could say is, what should I do? Oh, whatever you want. I was just updating you where Dawn was. My place is full at the moment, unfortunately. Texting me hours before I gotta be there that he just sent him to the place I'm staying at. He didn't have to do this. Found out he did this because he was tired of Dawn making a mess. Instead of sending him home and just having one difficult conversation with him, he decided to have Dawn stay at the office. So when I get in, I'm scared shitless. I made sure Rav was there to pick me up at the Burbank airport so I could like get briefed, basically. I get there and I don't think Dawn is there, and then I hear him. I hide in the bathroom, like after putting my shit up. Cause I didn't think he was there. The place is kind of big. The office is a house. So it made sense, like when I was offered to stay there, I was like, oh yeah, sure. Until I actually stayed there and realized every room is being used. But regardless, I had to hide in the bathroom when I realized Dawn was there. I hid in the bathroom at the SuperMega Plex, and I stayed in there with the door locked, scared shitless, until Dawn came up to the bathroom to try and use it. And I was in there. I had the door locked, so he tried turning it a few times and couldn't, and he knocked and he said hello, and I didn't answer. I was too scared to say anything. I didn't know what the fuck to say. I didn't even expect to see him ever again. I hear him realize it's me. I'm sure he'd been told that I was gonna be there, but he says something twice. He's like, hello? He's like, anybody in there? And then all of a sudden he stops trying, and I hear him like inhale or exhale or something, and then he goes to the other bathroom. And then afterwards he got arrangements to leave very quickly, and I hadn't seen him since. But after that, because Matt didn't ask him to leave, at that point, Dawn, I'm not trying to give him a pity story or anything, but this is just what happened. Dawn was too poor to fly back. He had been financially floated from the time that he was there to the time that he got kicked out without proper word or like a time. Basically, he had already been like not paid by them because their PayPal was messed up. He could have been like gone if you told him a date. You could have been like, go home by this date. He could have taken commissions or something, free will. Matt could have done all that with Dawn and not had me see him. But instead he was doing stuff like posting Jim's cat sitting on Dawn just a few days before I get there. 6 days before I get there. So Dawn's gone at this point. Vibes are fucked in the office. Dawn was staying on the couch, so I don't want to stay there because I know what Dawn smells like, and it smells like him. So Rav's already been staying in the game room. It's like this huge futon, so I just put all my shit in there with him. So from day one, it was fucking weird for multiple reasons. It was weird because I think people got the wrong idea from me staying in the game room. People were uncomfortable by me because of like the Dawn thing. Like people were thinking I was asking too much of them or something when I wasn't really asking for anything. I had already asked for something and it got turned into other stuff. And I think I was feeling like blamed for those things, that it's like, I don't know. You figure out what you want to do with your business, man. And that was still in my court, Day after I get there is the 14th. And that is Ryan's birthday. 14th. Happy birthday, Ryan. I'm in town with Rav. If you're not too busy, feel free to hit either of us up. Will do. I'm thinking of hanging out with some people tonight, so I'll keep you updated. Tell me why I get to that party. There's happy birthday balloons, cute little party. Everyone in the SuperMega circle up to this point is there, except for Leighton. Neither of us knew that the word around the block was like, fuck Leighton. Like, he was our friend. We hung out with him all the time. he was a cool guy. I couldn't even like fathom not liking him. So when he texted us that night and asked us what we were doing, I said it was Rav, and he said something along the lines of like, we're at a party, or like we're at Matt's house for a get together or something. And Leighton was like, is it Ryan's birthday party? Because he knew it was his birthday. I mean, they worked together. As the rest of the party found out through text messages that Leighton found out about the party, especially Matt and Ryan, they were like, ugh, like they hate that guy. Like, it was so crazy. I have never seen such a insane scene. Folks at that party, after, seeing their phones and getting visibly bummed out that Leighton is on the way and like spreading the word, people start taking down the balloons. They went to the store, because I didn't see a tank. They went to the store to pick up these happy birthday balloons, like in preparation, grabbed them. Don't know, not really keeping track of who, it doesn't really matter, because everybody was doing it. Grabbed the birthday balloons, went across the living room and stuffed them in the closet when they found out Leighton was on the way. Come to find out, I think I asked about it that night, they had started a rumor, I say this because they were all very drunk that night, that Leighton was going to like Game Grumps people and basically like saying numbers for their merch. Turns to find out that's not it at all. He was not doing that. They were being hard on him for something they could have talked to him about, but instead they were all like Ryan, Matt, Jim, and Justin all basically like went to each other to complain about Leighton instead of just talking to him. Because, I don't know, like from day one, Leighton has been on my side about the Don thing. He's never doubted me or never like asked me a weird question about it, like he didn't believe me, or, just stuff a friend does. But he was definitely the only one out of all of them that didn't have as many questions, because he, like I said before, has had experience with abuse. So I think it made him less of a yes man, which was very inconvenient for them, especially with the bad behavior they were committing at the time. Because like when someone says like, hey, your friend assaulted me, that friend happens to be a coworker, can I not see him? And you say, this job is my magnum opus multiple times. There's like, you just like don't care about people. You just like care about yourself. Like you just don't see people as like real things anymore. And that definitely is like how I felt to him. After the birthday party, Leighton always kind of knew that something was up that night. No one had told him in like formal words like, hey, they hid balloons from you, dude. Like, they put the whole party away to make it look like there was like 10 people chilling there without prior plans. But little did I know that would be like the peak of the iceberg onto how performative they would be. First of all, not get into any sort of like actual conflict with people, but to like be nice and manipulate people into doing an action that they've pre-approved. I don't know. Like, as time went on, I realized what they saw me as through other people's eyes, through how they treated other people. I was like, oh, they treat me like that too, rather than realizing that I was being treated badly, because I was kind of at this point okay with being treated badly, or I was like used to it, or whatever you want to say about it, right? My birthday was a couple days after, and pretty much no one came to it. Nothing against anyone, really. It's when I started to realize that things were more weird. Only Jim and Rav were there. Rav I was living with. Jim was there after work, and I think he came along with us when we went out to dinner that night. And then someone else's birthday was like 2 days later, and everyone was there. But he's like somebody that gets like approval. He's not like Leighton, I think that's when I started getting the inkling that I was falling out of favor with everyone. I just think that I didn't understand it. Not because it didn't make any sense. It had happened to me before. But they were still inviting me to stuff at this point. They were still hanging out with us. They were still being friendly, like making plans with us. It was weird. There was a night where we all went bowling in K-Town, and I got so freaked out from how weird everything was that I had to like leave the bowling alley and like go cry by myself outside. I've never done that before, ever. I'm not a public crier, ever. I mean, I say that when I'm crying on this video, but I'm at home, right? But the closer to AX things got, the weirder things got. and I had been planning to hang out with everybody during AX. I was supposed to be in the SuperMega video last year at AX. I just didn't get any contact from them that day after like weeks of like Matt coming to me and being like, you should be in this video. And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds fun. No contact that day. So I was at AXD and doing my own thing, taking my own photos, because that's just what I do anyway, so it was fine. But on the 4th, I had a cookout for everyone at the Plex. Me and Rav bought a lot of stuff, like a pool and stuff for the party and all this, and I just spent the whole day cooking. Spent all day cooking, blah, blah, blah. Everybody gets kind of lit. Most people leave, and I'm in the kitchen, and Jim is there. Jim is an employee at SuperMega. I had considered us buddies for a while. We're both from Tennessee. I'd like, I guess, bonded with him over it or something. So I'd never seen him as like anything but like a friendly face. So he walks up to me after dinner and everything. It's probably gonna be like 10 or 11. And he's like, I noticed you've been feeling down lately. I've been like said something about how he's been like watching me or something. And I tried not to take it in a weird way because I was like, well, I don't really know how else you'd say that, right? Like I don't know. So I like try not to overthink it because I was trying to listen to him. He invited me to talk about what happened with Don because he didn't know the full story. If at least according to him, if he did, somebody else had told him and he wanted to know my version. I really don't know. We went from the kitchen right outside the kitchen to the living room and sat on the couch Dawn was sleeping on. And okay, so my reference of Jim is that this is a silly guy. So when he like sits down on the couch next to me and then lays down and stretches out, I'm like, he's just being silly. So I tell him the whole story. I tell him everything that happened, up until then. I'm pretty sure I even said about that Don was there at the office and all that, just because he came to me asking why I looked upset a lot. So of course that's all the reasons. When he heard my story, he was like, man, I'm so sorry. And then proceeded to like start flirting with me like right after. This is when I realized, because I was doing most of the talking, that after I was done with the story and he started talking, like he started saying flirty things and like he started putting me in a headlock, that I was like, oh, he's drunk. And like pretty much right after I realized that, he started kissing me. If you've ever seen a picture of Jim, he's a really tall guy. It was not even in my brain to be like, get this guy off of me, or like, not get this guy off of me. Yes, I didn't want to kiss him. Because to me, this guy I am not that close friends with. Like, we are just from the same place. And like, I thought he wanted to like get to know me better. Listens to my sexual assault story and then makes out with me. Like, at this rate, I'm just kind of stun locked. I had no idea what he's doing. I don't know if there's even any other people in the place. I think there was 2 other people. I think Matt and Rav were still there. So he like gets up at some point after like putting me in a chokehold a few more times and kissing. He only kissed me a couple times, but he put me in a chokehold for a while and it was very uncomfortable. He like gets up and then goes to the office and he's like, come here. I don't even remember thinking anything. I was literally just like confused. And because when he said that, he was in the office, but he was in the closet. And when I came over to him, because I was just I was like, why in my head, I'm thinking, why is this guy just went to the office closet? Like the office where like everybody has their computers and there's like a coat closet and you just go in there and stand in the doorway and give me a kiss again. Like I didn't even have like a reaction. I just didn't know what the fuck that was. And then after that, I was like, do you like me or something? Because I genuinely just so like, it came out of nowhere. Like I said, I just told him about being assaulted and he does this. And his answer is, I think you're cute. It is so fucking weird. I still to this day can't like, the only thing I can do is be like, he was drunk, but why would you do that right after? Like, even if you like planned on doing that, why would you do that then? I don't know. Things have been getting so weird over the course of AX, because I realized that I was losing contact with Matt and Ryan. At this point, Jim had been living with Matt for a few months now and was staying in ironically the room I got assaulted in, but the old room I used to stay in all the time. That night I went with Matt and Jim back to Matt's place, and we all went to his living room. He has 3 couches and we're all sitting on one each by ourselves. And Jim essentially immediately went to sleep. I have a picture of it. Hold on. Jim just immediately fell asleep as soon as we got there. That night was weird. After Jim fell asleep, it was just me and Matt. And this is like the first time we had gotten to talk one-on-one since the phone call that I made to him. So we catch up a little bit. To my knowledge, I don't think we talked about Don at all. But one thing that did come up was Matt offered to pay for me to live somewhere, like down payment plus several months, which if you're in LA, if you know anything about the housing market in LA, is an exorbitant amount of money. Jim's asleep next to us, just me and him in his living room, and he says this. Most freaked out I think I've ever been by him, aside from the phone call, obviously. I immediately said no. At this point, I didn't fully distrust him. I just had a gut feeling that no one gives you that amount of money for no reason without something to gain from it. It felt like a bribe. That's at least like, I don't know, the way he was saying it, that's at least like 10K. And like, regardless of how much it means to him or not, I didn't want it. I felt like weirded out that he did that. He was saying this so I could live alone in LA, like specifically apartment money for me to live alone. It was very weird. I turned him down, and we ended whatever conversation we were having, and I went to sleep and went back to the office that next day and packed to go to Nashville. I went to Nashville on the 6th, I think. My mom's birthday is the 7th of July, and my mom is, not to out her, but she's like 65 almost. So I don't get along with my mom the best, but I still wanted to go see her for her birthday. And plus, like, me and Rav at this point had been going to meet realtors every however many other days, but we didn't have like most of our stuff to actually move in, and 2, we were Ubering everywhere. So a lot of the money that could have went to actually securing a place to stay went to getting an Uber, to getting Ubers, like hundreds of dollars in Ubers, just living in LA doing life and moving stuff. So we had a plan to go to Gatlinburg, the Smoky Mountains, for my mom's birthday. Go there. We're in the middle of our trip, and I think about day 3 or 4, Rav's partner, we find out, had attempted to take her own life. And Rav's context, his backstory, is that he's from the UK. He had just moved and done tour and was just going to move to LA. He'd just gotten divorced, but they were still close. They weren't even like finalized. They had just started the paperwork. They were just separated basically. And when that happened, it broke Rav. Like, it went from him consoling me to what was wrong with me to me consoling him, because he was so destroyed from that we like had to take turns carrying each other's weight essentially, instead of sharing mine, which was kind of our overarching situation. Like, my situation was why his was the way it was, you know what I mean? There was only so much I could do besides distract him, and that was the most effective thing to do. There was nothing he could do physically. He wasn't in the UK to like go see her or, do anything to help. So he's kind of just sitting here having to wait on the phone for a call to hear if she's okay, because she was in the hospital for a while after this. Like, she didn't come out just like, oh, it didn't work out. It was like she had to recover physically, and it was like a rough process. So he gets that, that event happens to him while we're out, and when we get back from the Smokies, I was trying to fuel positivity into the move because of all the negative things that were happening, which spawned the idea of getting a car, because we were spending so much money, all the extra money. It would have been so much better to just have the car instead of wait and pay extra every ride. It was making us late to appointments to go see places. It was making places off limits because they're too far of an Uber. So buying a car was the next step to just be like, oh yes, we have independence. We can like get out of the office faster, right? So when we get back to town, we get on our shit, we put a down payment on a car. I throw a lot of my stuff, my computer, pretty much all my work stuff in the car. And we took the next week or 2 driving back. After what happened to Rav and what had been happening to me, I thought it would have been a good idea to go the longer way, just because of all the things that were going on. The visual stimulation, we had been gaining so much from it already from having driven around in LA, that I thought that driving through the US, I've done it before, but never that way until then, that the both of us could get something out of it. And we did. It just took longer because that road is treacherous. So the other way in like Utah, for example, there's a stretch of road for about 230 miles that has no gas. Just to go to show the difference in the kind of drive it is. And I wouldn't personally have taken it back for the world because I don't know what I would have gained from having been there that much faster, considering what happened or how things went down. But towards the end, I was getting texts like, or when do you guys think you're going to be back? Which I found odd because at this point, I'd only been there 2 weeks. Yeah, just barely over 2 weeks. And you know, I was going to get my stuff. One of the things was that I noticed when we were gone is that we stopped getting asked as many questions. It was mostly just about where we were so they could know when we would be gone or when we would be back to be gone fast, right? So, and when we were out, I would take pictures, and those pictures ended up surprisingly popping off and making me the money I was making last summer because I couldn't at the SuperMegaplex do regular work. Like, I can't set up a photo set station for myself and like take photos in clothes that I wouldn't feel comfortable wearing around the guys at the office, for example. So me getting like a desk or making a workspace just wasn't an option. And I didn't know that until after I got there. And like after I'd been there a bit, you know, the birthday stuff happened, AX is about to come up, and I start realizing, like, how am I going to get work done? I don't have a place to work. My brain's broken, so it's making it harder to think about shit, and just in general. Not that that's an excuse, it just is just the facts of, like, what is going on with me at that time. I'm, like, brainstorming all the time on, like, what to do, and the easiest thing I can think of is just to not be at the office. The office is dirty. I'm often cleaning up maggot infested pizza boxes. I'm doing stuff that maids get paid to do on my free time that I'm not working. So I'm paying to do it technically. It was not a place that you could work at. It was only a place you could sleep at. And every time I was gone and made plans, it was strategic. It was like, all right, while we're here, we're going to do this, that, and this. And I'm going to take pictures here, this, and here. Everything was so meticulously planned except for the locations because I just stumbled upon them. So I would just wear a maid outfit all day, drive around, find a spot, and that would be how I'd make money, is take a picture of wherever I would end up traveling to. And I just was just getting lucky. But there was 3 times we were gone. 2 weeks for my mom's birthday. So that was, I think, a 4 or 5 day trip to Gatlinburg, plus the day before to travel there. And then the rest of the time was traveling back. So maybe like at most 7 days of travel during what was one of the hottest summers ever last year. Didn't even include in those figures buying the car. I think we spent 2 days on that, trying to find the car and then buying it, which I could have spent more time on it because I ended up getting a car that needed a $4,000 repair when I got back to LA. So I suffered because of having to rush from knowing I was going to be asked, instead of them just either giving me a date to leave by or asking me like, do you know when you can be gone by? Instead, they would just say, "You guys on a vacation again?" Insinuating that we're doing it only for fun. It was never like, maybe they don't want to be around us or something. It was always an us problem. And I think that's why I still gaslight myself about everything. After we get back from the Smokies, I think we were back for a week or 2. I want to say a week and a half. And then it gets to the point where Rav, I'm so scared for his depression because he's still so broken about his ex attempting to take her life that I like wake up and go to sleep worried that he's not gonna be there. He's just gonna like walk off somewhere and I'm not gonna see him, because that's the kind of stuff he was like talking about, because he felt so awful. And when someone's that suicidal, it's scary and like it's hard to think about other stuff. Like, we got back and he told the boys and they all were like, "I'm so sorry, man." And after that, anytime it was brought up, it was like, it just kind of felt like he was being dramatic. It just kind of felt like this again. It was hard not to stay out of the office after realizing that our lives were becoming increasingly more difficult, and every time anyone at the office found out, they pulled further away. It made us feel like it was our faults and that we had something to fix. And we were trying to fix it to the best of our ability because we didn't want to be there. No one wants to stay in their car all the time. No one wants to be willingly living in their car all the time if they don't have to do that. Not when I already have half my stuff at a house and have brought over more from the other half of the United States. Like, that shows an intention, right? But it just feels like the whole time, anytime I was gone out of town too long, it was just a statement towards me being lazy. Me and Rav being lazy. Instead of it being like, I don't know, just literally anything. Asking a question and talking to people like friends. That didn't happen. So, you know, I get this car and I get back to town and I'm still getting ignored. So that doesn't help Rav either. So I came up with the idea, about a week and a half after the Smokies, that we should go to, some mountains in NorCal about 5 hours north. It was, I think, a 3-day trip. We had already taken a blow to our finances at this point, and it was just to get out, to get fresh air, to see a mountain, to drive around, to get out the Plex, as usual, but also to distract ourselves from what was going on, and for Rav to distract himself for what was going on for him back at home. So I don't feel bad for doing that. I didn't have to worry about Rav wanting to die. I think that's worth anything for anyone. But it was still always just that we're lazy. It was never like, is he okay? Are you guys okay? Even if they were disappointed in us, they still could have always came up to us and had a heart-to-heart conversation and just had every chance to and never did and refused to, if anything. We were where they worked every day and they still didn't decide to walk across the house to talk to us about anything important and just left it up to Leighton and Jim. Mostly Jim, because Jim wasn't friends enough with us to take our sides on anything. Leighton would have and had said things in our favor against theirs, and I think that upset them. And it was around this same time, aside from the creator clash thing, that they really started to ice them. Around the same time they started to ice us. We get back from the mountains and no one talks to us. We are basically statues in the backgrounds of the house. And not that we expect people to come chat us up all the time, but it's obvious when you're getting ignored. Anyone knows what that looks like. So we become painfully aware that we're being ignored and just still trying to do our normal thing. I'm doing work around town. Just driving around. We're only in town for about another 2 weeks before we get a message from Rav's, what do you want to call him? Co-rapper, that he's going to be in Seattle, and that he wanted to work with him because they had music to put out and music to make together. So since Rav had been going with me all these places to do my work, I was like, yeah, I'll drive, let's go. It's not that far, and it's work. Matt and Ryan know the guy that we were going to meet. Matt's gone on tour with them before. They found out about our plans to go to Seattle for work and put Jim in a group chat with us to get Jim to ask us, quote, going on another vacation? When are you guys going to be back? At this point, this is they start calling them vacations. I felt as if the things that I knew they saw on my timeline were clearly just being ignored because I was obviously doing work. Even if you can't see Rav's music that he's making because it hasn't been released yet, I've been doing stuff. Every day on my timeline last year, you see me and I'm posting in a different state, getting tens of thousands of likes, hundreds of thousands of likes. I'm not even trying to gloat. It was amazing. That was the only thing at that time I was excited about because everything else in my life was going to shit. And when I was sad, I couldn't even post why I couldn't work when people asked me. Because at this point, everyone had involved themselves so much that how would I say something without sounding like I'm trying to call them out now? I refuse at that time to believe that now those stories are just intrinsically linked. I know that now, but it took me at least half a year to digest the fact that if I wanted to ever talk about it, I'd have to talk about both of them now, because they both refused to talk to me when I was staying at their workplace that they visited all the time, or even just text or like call to meet up. I think it took me a long time to realize it wasn't working, because I couldn't understand the concept of being so disrespected by someone that you're friends with. Like, all of a sudden, to this person, we're like people that aren't even worth talking to. Like, it's just too much. It's too much now. Like, I know they can't handle confrontation, but I guess I always expected them to at least just talk to me as a friend. But that's when I had to realize they stopped being my friend, when I told them what happened. When Matt told me that SuperMega was his magnum opus after I told him I got assaulted, and how technically Don's not an employee, so we don't have to do anything. I'm not completely happy with how I handled myself last summer, because I was out of it. And honestly, I think I needed someone to talk to me and be like, hey, you good? It doesn't seem like you're doing well. Outside of like saying that, then making out with me. Well, when Jim put himself in a group chat with me and Rav and asked that, we basically just saw ourselves out, because we were so beaten down, and like we really both thought that them knowing what we were going to Seattle for, since they knew who, they knew why, they knew what, it was for work, couldn't be any more work for work than it possibly was. And this was the straw that broke the camel's back, like the most work trip visit we've taken so far. It was just defeating to get a message like that, I think. So we just offered ourselves to just leave, because we had a feeling that it was going to happen anyway. I can only speak for myself, but the fear of being kicked out without a date was freaking me out, because there's no date. No one was saying a date. No one was like, you got to be here by, or you got to be out here by then. I remember there was a time frame of like the middle of August, but we had plans to be back by then. So if things had gone correctly, we get back from Seattle, grab our stuff, and we can peacefully fuck off, because we would have had time to plan it. Oh, sorry to mention, it was Jim and I in the group chat, Rav, and Matt. Matt said nothing, just was supervising. Just didn't say anything. Yo, just heard y'all were taking another vacation. Wonder if there are any updates on the expected move-out date? Hope the search has been going good. This whole time, Jim had been showing us places and being like, this is cool, you should sign up for here. And then when we didn't manage to land a place, because if you've been in LA and tried to move into a place with someone else, it's very expensive and very hard, and there's just LA realtors aren't good. We had a lot of problems. They weren't showing up. They would say they had a meeting time of like this to this, and you'd go there and no one was there. They'd be late because they already got sold and you didn't know it until you get there. That was most of those, is just like finding out that the place was already like taken, or it was just not what the pictures said at all, and like we were trying to get scammed basically. But none of that was like conversations to be had, right? It was just about, make sure you guys get out soon. They only wanted really updates of when we'd leave so they'd feel better. But no words were said to us by Matt and Ryan. I must reiterate this. Matt and Ryan were avoiding us. Ever since we got back from the Smokies, they had purposely not hung out with us. The only time they really did is if they wanted to smoke weed, because they knew that since we hung out in the garage all the time like delinquents to stay out of their way, and we're out there smoking weed and getting bit by mosquitoes all the time, we would probably have weed with us, so we were useful for that. Sorry, I'm crazy. It also has Ryan in it. I didn't even notice. It's been so long I memory hold it. Oh yeah! This is after the whole saga where our car breaks down after we got back in town, had to stay in Orange County at a friend's house until it got fixed. People didn't know how to fix it, so the labor costs kept going up. Cost about $4,000 to get it fixed. Drive it back to the Plex, but before we drive it back to the Plex, since we didn't have a car, we were Ubering again, and Rav's phone fell out while he was getting out of an Uber. Noticed it right after the Uber left. Tried calling, never got an answer back from it. So he lost his phone that day. So when they message us, this is the day before we got robbed. It's August 9th. Rav has no phone, and they're asking us about a move-out date. So I say, Rav can't see this, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, here's Rav's response. Yeah, like, poking fun at the fucking vacation comment. Oh yeah, he lost his debit card. And his phone. Forgot about that. Yeah, when this happened, we just weren't able to house hunt because we were set back so far. Prior to that, we checked a bunch of places, just haven't come across anything that ticks all the boxes. Once we're coming back from my short business trip, we'll resume visiting places. We're hoping to lock something in before the trip, but the car in my shitty pants pockets clearly had other plans. This reminded me the 4th when I went to Matt's with Jim and Matt. Jim was offering me to stay at the place that they're gonna rent, and instead of it being me, I think they got tired of me because that was the only time I ever mentioned it, the night before, or the night that I also got offered a place to stay by myself. Jim just got like 2 other SuperMega people to stay with him, one of which was a girl that Matt cheated on his girlfriend with. To his ex-girlfriend looked like whenever he would go see her was just him hanging out with Jim. Matt's ex that knew Jim first got betrayed by Jim, and everybody pretty much knew, except for her, what was going on. So at this point in the story, it's August. The day after this conversation takes place, we get robbed. I have no photos of that because as soon as I woke up and saw the car was empty of stuff, I just screamed as loud as possible, called the cops. No reason. They could not help. And then just cried a bunch and then made a post about it, which apparently was laughed at by the guys at the office. That day that I got robbed and I posted about it, no one that I knew in LA messaged me. No one. Actually, I think Matt's ex messaged me. If anyone messaged me, it was her. The only person out of the Super Mega people that messaged Rav was Jim, and he just sent him a slanty face. He sent him this. As like a reply to his Instagram stories saying we got robbed. I literally never would expect money, shelter, anything, but at least to like reach out as a friend and be like, you good? I literally was there when he found out Jackson stole a shit ton of money from him, and I was constantly asking him, what's wrong? Are you good? You okay? Only like once or twice, I think, did he actually say like, yeah, this is upsetting me. But it was like hard fought. It was like, I got weirded out that he couldn't be serious. I guess I shouldn't have expected him to be serious about what happened with me if he couldn't do it about himself. And that was... So after we go to Seattle, get robbed in Portland, on the way up, the stuff we get robbed of: laptop, iPad, work clothes, makeup, toiletries. I'm a model and an artist. Those are all the things that I need to make money in the world. So at that point, priority number 1 was no longer finding a place to live, but rebuying those things so I could make the money to get a place to live. I don't know, not my proudest moment, not anything anyone should ever have to go through. And it just is what it is, but the reaction to it didn't need to be the way it was, unfortunately. If anything, it made me realize, like, oh, this is real. Like, they're not fucking around. They don't care. Okay. And it was, funny enough, easier to reprioritize my plans after having something that bad happen. Some say you need to fall to rock bottom. When we get back in town, there's a group chat where essentially me, Rav, Matt, and Ryan are all going back and forth, and it's basically Matt and Ryan telling us all the things we did wrong that made them not want us there anymore. After both we got kind of kicked out, like nicely kicked out, and robbed and not contacted by them after, their next correspondence is like telling us we were dirty. We were dirty. The people that would spend hours cleaning up the office from when guys would order every single day often don't throw it away. They have a person come by, but it's only once a month, so you can imagine the mess that gets made between the time. And it was getting blamed on us. At this point, we just had drove back into town and we had nowhere to stay. Trying to save all of our money to rebuy our stuff ASAP. So since I have a Jeep, we just sleep in the car. I go to Santa Monica, Malibu area in between there and just go park by the ocean because it's free. The first place we stayed outside of the Plex was like some rinky-dink hotel in Pasadena. It was like obviously like used for sex trafficking. Like it was a giant master bedroom with a hot tub, and it had a corded phone with the cable cut. So we were there for like a week or two, paying, like, extending it day by day because we weren't finding places to stay. I think it had been a bit, and then we get no message, so we had to kind of decide to reach out. After everything, we had to reach out to them. Raph said, "Boys, we are back in LA, we came back to LA yesterday and are staying in Pasadena for the time being. We'd love to talk with the two of you soon. Things have felt real weird between us lately from my POV, so I just want to make sure we were all good. We could drive up to y'all even today if y'all wanted to be able to make time for a conversation. Hope y'all are well. Oh, and congrats on managing to reach a settlement with Jackson. Hopefully that'll be a huge load off y'all's shoulders." This is at August 23rd, 3:14 p.m. August 24th, at almost 1 p.m. Rav responds again. "Boys?" Matt Watson. "Hey dude, sorry, we were out with Alex Ernst yesterday and have been busy filming. Things have been totally cool on our end. It's all good, man. After everything that I just told you all summer, a year, it's all good, man." So this is the kind of things I'm saying when I say that these are the kind of people that will placate you. This is the kind of manipulation that they do. It's not, I'm going to force you to do this thing. It's that I'm going to be nice and steer you in this direction of responding in this way. It's still manipulation. You're still pulling the strings. You're just trying to get me to have a certain kind of conversation with you that isn't warranted. Like, we need to talk. And you're saying some shit you were filming with some guy. Sorry if somebody's a fan of Alex Ernst. I don't know who that is. Cool. So you've been doing your job. So you're telling me you were too busy doing your job, that I guess you don't do enough, that it's like a big deal, an excuse enough to like not say you want to meet up at a later date, because that's all we were asking, is to say, hey, can we meet up? Like, we were saying we could even today, as like in case you got like some time, because we want to get this done. But instead it's like, no, I gotta make it a block to think about this and even get on my phone to respond to it, is basically the kind of response he gave. Nice, no worries, you're busy people. Glad to hear that you feel like everything's cool, but we have heard / seen things that at times have made us feel otherwise. I feel like a conversation would be good to have to help address any misunderstandings and or grievances that might potentially exist, regardless of how small, Besides, we haven't talked in forever. Matt says, "I'm not sure what you would have heard or seen otherwise. I'm sorry if anything has come across that way. We have no grievances on our end." At the time, I was mad at Rav for responding this, but now that I look back, it was just because I was scared of making them mad and scaring them off like little birds or something. But Rav was just being playful because he was trying to point out the fact that, well, Ryan hadn't even responded at this point, but Matt was totally avoiding the point of us messaging them, which is the fact that we were like, hey, can we meet up? And Matt's like, I'm doing YouTube. We're all good, man. It's all totally cool. And it's like, that's not an answer. And so I get why Rav felt like that was his only option, because when you're around people like this all the time, you get brain broken into trying to be nice all the time. So I think this was his way of trying to be like playful and nice and bringing up a serious topic, because they're so avoidant that when you do stuff like saying, hey, can we have a conversation? They don't respond. And then when they do, it's a throwaway response that, they're doing stuff they would be doing even if you hadn't messaged them. I'm doing work, guys. Congrats. So Ryan gets really real with it the next day at 5 p.m. just about. They had to spend a day and a half chewing on this. The way these guys do group chats is they all go in the office together and play football and make a plan and who's doing good cop, bad cop ass shit. Very manipulative. But how else do you think they would have had Jim message me with Matt in there? They all work together. Why does Matt need to be in there? Except for a power dynamic. They know what they're doing. Ryan says the next day, I don't think it's about that. It's just we're trying to get our lives together and we've been nothing but generous to y'all during this time. I think the idea that there are grievances time and time again with our friendship when we've been helping you whenever we can is confusing. It's not a good feeling and overwhelming. Especially since this year has been nothing but drama since the jump. Literally nothing to do with me at all. Or Rav. I don't care. No one's saying that to me. No one's saying I know you've dealt with a lot. Like they're saying they're only bringing it up as like we've dealt with you. Like Rav just was like, congrats about the bad thing that is good now. And when it gets brought up for us, it's about like, we've been helping you time and time again. And there's still grievances time and time again. It's only been one grievance. It was always the same grievance. It was the same thing that no one listened to me for. And when I tried to talk about it, no one wanted to talk about it. And now it's a problem. And I'm homeless, sitting in this creepy, weird sex trafficking room, getting told that, like, we're annoying, basically. That, like, we have too many grievances. I got assaulted, man. Could you guys just, like, care? Like, why'd you switch up? What happened to keeping them accountable, Ryan? Like, this year's been nothing but drama since the jump. For you, I don't think they relate to anything bad that we've been through. And the one thing they could, which was Rav's partner attempting to, like, take themselves, was Daniel, their friend Daniel. Matt's, like, at least twice in front of me, separate times we'll hang out with him, has called Daniel a coward. So, no, they don't care about suicide. They don't give a shit about suicide. They only give a shit about themselves and who they can make jokes of that are under them that they can get away with. We know that your intentions are mainly to air grievances with us, so it feels odd to throw in the secondary objective of hanging out when the whole purpose of you even texting us was to set a time to air those grievances. If it hasn't been obvious, we love y'all and want to support y'all when we can. And I'm not sure there's much else we can do or say. Him saying we love y'all, the only other time they said that to me was when I called them and told them about the assault. That was the only other time they've ever said that to me. And I've always seen them as brothers. Never ever had one like weird thought about them. That's why I felt safe to even like go hang out with them by myself. It goes to show how much I trusted them. I don't know. I did want to hang out with them. And he's just like trying to call us out. Like Ryan just tried calling us out, acting like we're like trying to do gotcha or something about me being upset. The event that happened that made them even aware that we were upset still was that we had talked to Leighton, and Leighton, he did not do this on purpose. He made the mistake of passing the word along, and I think he was trying to help because I think it's what he wanted too. Because he would never, literally would never try and like get me in trouble over this after he has been like my rock the whole time outside of this whole situation. When he told them that I was still upset, I don't think they got to hear why, because all I wanted was them to make a statement, at least just to say that Don doesn't work with them anymore, or they've split ways, or however you want to word that. That's such a loose-ended statement. You could be as vague as possible, or you could just straight up say, he assaulted someone, we're not working with him anymore. And then, like, imagine if they did that, I would have no burden of people believing me or not. Because if SuperMega said, hey, we're not working with this guy anymore, he assaulted someone, whether or not they named me or not, getting to, like, say without being scared that something bad is gonna happen to me, that I got assaulted and that, like, hey, I gotta take a break from work. I never got to do that. I never got to take a break. All the breaks I took was because I was burnt out and I was suicidal. You know how many times I wanted to like kill myself because of all this shit going on? Like the Dawn thing by itself, I've been assaulted before, unfortunately. It's an experience I myself can handle. But when it has to do with other people and being able to tell how they think of you through their actions, it becomes unavoidable. Like, I don't have to see Don anymore. What he did to me, I don't have to think about. But when someone is treating me actively different all the time in front of me, my only friends in LA that my only plan of like staying somewhere, my only like safe place, didn't want to help me, said they did nothing but helped me, and then gaslit me about it and made me homeless. Cause like, sure, maybe saying made me homeless is like maybe extreme, but one, how else would you say that? Two, we could have talked. Literally all we had to do was do this. We tried doing it even after and they still didn't want to. So how do you get someone to talk to you when they refuse to? You just can't. And when that person or people are responsible of the like land that all your worldly possessions are in that haven't been stolen, you kind of have to like work with them. And they were refusing to work with us. There was a point in time we get into town, we just don't have access to the Plex. There's at least over a week of time where we have no stuff. I can't get my computer. I can't get my extra clothes that I have in California. Anything. I just can't function, and because he's talking to Alex Ernst. He's making a video with Alex Ernst today. Sorry, you don't get your clothes. I haven't read back on this particular conversation since then, but it's so cruel. Like, we're homeless sitting in a hotel reading this. Like, I think we have maybe like 3 changes of clothes. I'm wearing the same clothes all the time, and I'm using a hotel dryer to do my hair. You know, this rinky dink, like circle shape hotel dryers that, like, if you put your hair too close to it, it like takes your hair out and burns it. It's one of those. I remember being so mad when Ryan messaged us because he was the most quiet out of all of them. And from my POV, I thought he just didn't have an opinion, not in the sense that he didn't care, but he just like he was indifferent. Like, it wasn't like something bothering him. So when he messages us when we're homeless and like is like bothered by us, it's so confusing because it's like, you've seen me. You could have talked to me 5 out of 7 days a week. And you talk to me 0 out of 7 days a week. Rav responded, "Y'all have indeed been incredibly generous with us. Thank you for that." He's being so fucking nice, but what else can you do other than suck ass? They have all this shit. Neither I nor Lex would argue against that. Our intentions are not to air grievances with y'all, but to make sure we are indeed all cool after observing a number of awkward interactions between us over the course of the last month or 2. I'm sorry to see you assume that our intentions are to mainly air grievances with y'all. This assumption from my POV is evidence that there may be indeed an expectation of some sort of antagonism, which, and I hope you can take my word for it, there is not, because we were just trying to fix our shit, man. They were mad. I was mad about my material conditions and like getting hungry at that point. Like, at that rate, I don't know if I can speak for Rav too, but a lot of days we were just sitting in the hotel room talking about the boys. Meanwhile, they were like laughing at us. We didn't know this at the time, but we were just like, I wonder if it's going to work out. Because those were literally, up until that point, that was our social circle. That was everyone we knew in LA. I understand this year has been incredibly tough on y'all, and we wholeheartedly don't mean to add on to the stress and anxiety any more than we already have staying at the Plex for as long as we did. The fact that we felt, you can consider this co-wrote, since I was like, every time Rav would send a message in this particular group chat, he was like, this looked good. The fact that I get assaulted, tell them about it, and they essentially kick us out, they all but kick us out of their place, and get suspicious at us being like, hey, we good, to the point where we have to console them about their year being hard. Insane. Like, what are these babies we're talking to? Like, why do you have to, it's this last sentence, why do you have to console someone for a hard year? What are you, a kid? Like, they got stolen from, right? And we're having to tell this to them right after we got robbed. They're not saying sorry to us. They never said sorry to us, actually. They made fun of us. Strange. It's only okay for you guys to have a hard year. Never, you know, the person who got assaulted or the person who's like dealing with suicide attempts. I don't know. I know you guys don't give a shit about either of those things, obviously, but the one constant they can give a shit about is their fucking selves. What kind of bug is this? The fuck was that? A lot has happened to both Lex and I individually and mutually over the past few months too. We feel like amidst scrambling to deal with our shit, we sadly lost touch with y'all. I know that y'all have been busy with your life shit and work too, so I wonder if you'll share that sentiment. I opened up this group chat to take steps towards remedying that. All this peaceful talk Rav does is met with a text back from Ryan saying, "We were told that y'all are still upset with how we handled the Dawn situation. Is this not true? If the problems you're talking about aren't that and are just an off vibe, then yeah, we've caught it too. Whether it's standoffishness we're getting from y'all acting in a rude manner when invited to my birthday, or what seemed like directed negative sarcasm in a recent group chat. It's difficult to not expect there is antagonism behind some of these things. The fact that he can say, like, even bring up the Dawn situation, I had not talked about Dawn in typed words the whole time. So I remember when I wrote this, I was like, oh, so I could just show this to anyone now, right? Like, I could just show, he said it. It's real. Like, it's not just like some shit that I'm like saying in Insular and then there's no other proof of someone else. I remember feeling a weird amount of relief when he wrote that and sent it. I was like, you're so mad you like fucked yourself in case like you wanted to ever keep this like fully like locked down forever. Not that you could, it's not even your situation to do that, but it seemed like that was the attempt. The only time you mention is complaining to me about how I'm reacting, them not reacting. And the way that is brought up, y'all are still upset with how we handled it. Is that not true? That's just prompt to like start an argument. That's not, you don't actually care at that point. You're bringing it up that way. We were told y'all are still upset. Like, first of all, we know by who you were told. And when I told that person, I told them we were going to talk to you. So I don't know if like them finding out soon made them decide not to suddenly talk to us. That's a very immature reason to not. Yeah, we don't want to talk. You guys are seeming aggressive. Our year's been really hard. This grown man is saying it's difficult not to expect there's some antagonism behind some of these things. You try getting fucked on by a grown man, keeping it quiet, having people like treat you like you're a little worm after you tell them, and see if you're not a little antagonistic. And even then, I was keeping the fuck quiet. Like, they weren't gonna find out unless someone else told them. And Leighton was just trying to help. He was just trying to help. They refused to talk to us, so it's not like they would have ever found out through talking to us. They would have only found out if, like, Leighton or Jim said something. So, they just had no intentions. It could not be any more clear that they just had no concern with trying to communicate after all of this happened. Their only concern has been framing it so it's our fault and everything that we've done is our fault. And I'm not to say that we're not adults here. We have self-autonomy. But everything I say has an explanation. Every action has a context that comes before it, that had a bad thing that happened before it that made me react the way it did. What do they have besides Jackson? Like, it was in February, it was almost the end of summer, and they're telling us we've had such a hard year from something that happened in winter, and they just settled it. So if anything, they should have been happy at this time, but they're just being like, oh, we're so tired, it's not your thing to be tired about. You don't get to be tired about this. This didn't happen to you. Like, who do you think you are to say something like that to someone? Raph said, although I personally do think there are ways in which you could have handled the Dawn situation better, I also appreciate that everyone makes mistakes. This is, however, not at the heart of what we're trying to engage here. Admittedly, we did vent to Leighton about it, along with the actually relevant concerns recently in confidence. But in my opinion, it's the radio silence that has primarily been at the heart of our concerns. In regards to the off vibes, I appreciate you sharing your take on things. My take is somewhat different, and I hope that it can provide some clarity. As for the standoffishness, TBH, we felt like y'all were being the ones who were getting more standoffish as the time went on. It felt like unless we said good morning to y'all first, y'all would seldom greet us, and y'all would leave the office all the time without saying anything, which kind of made us feel like furniture. At the time, I assumed this because y'all were growing increasingly frustrated with how long we were staying at y'all's. In the same breath, it felt like y'all never took the time to talk to us about it, instead delegating correspondence to Jim. In retrospect, I should have said something about this then, and I'm not sure why I didn't. I'm sorry. I know why you didn't, because you expected them to be normal. As for the sarcasm in the chat, that's the one thing I feel like is not really justified reproaching considering how it went down. Not only did y'all choose to handle communication with us through corporate head-ass means instead of just approaching us as friends, but Jim was also upsettingly condescending. I won't tolerate being treated like a child. This is a matter I aim to address with Jim separately, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hurt that y'all thought that would be an appropriate way of corresponding with us. He's talking about the way they basically kicked us out, where they babysat us with a group chat with Jim, me, Rev, and Matt in it to supervise. Is very weird. Ultimately, if everything was indeed hunky-dory, we wouldn't be reaching out to y'all to have a discussion. You wouldn't have been able to produce a list of grievances that you have here, and none of us would be having this conversation in the first place. There are no antagonistic intentions here. What would we accomplish by meeting up with y'all and then proceeding to antagonize y'all? We simply want to talk and hopefully bridge the existing gap of communication. Again, I personally don't think the text messaging is conducive to the best mode of communication when it comes to stuff like this. And if possible, I prefer to do this in person, or at the very least via a call. This feels a lot colder and more distant than what it needs to be. Big message, part of why I didn't say anything, or I didn't show anything yet. It's just a huge message. You can scroll for yourself if you are nosy and want to read it again. This is my only message. I really wanted to be able to talk to you guys about it normally and in person about everything that was on my mind. I hadn't had the opportunity opportunity to catch you guys at the office before we stopped staying there because y'all seem really busy and at the end of the day, I think I ended up missing y'all a lot to be able to catch you guys. Tears me up that you saw us as rude during your birthday. I was being avoidant because I was still both torn up about the Don situation more than I realized at the time. Yeah, because I just fucking saw him the day before and fucking Ryan messages us like, how dare you be rude to me at my birthday party? Rav's getting divorced and I saw the guy that assaulted me the day before. And Ryan's like, you need to be happy on my birthday. Why are you outside on the balcony smoking? Didn't come and ask us. We were just trying to be nice. They had invited us and we wanted to be there. I was excited to go to his birthday. I'm pretty sure how it ended up being slipped out to Leighton. And I was happy when he got there too. I was happier when he got there because he's one of the only few people I like talking to and we all just sat outside on the balcony. And apparently that's rude. Not only is it something he noticed, that you can just have left it at that, it's rude. Fuck your birthday, man. You're like 29, 30? Fuck your fucking birthday, dude. Grow up. Go to round 1. I'm very insulted reading this again because I feel like I've just been taken as a sucker, which I haven't. They totally have been, but it just always becomes obvious when I reread these. It's been hard to do this because I just get mad that I've been thought of so stupid before. And maybe I was, but the way that they treated me to do me the way they did is just so like blatantly like wrong. Like, how am I in the wrong for being sad after I just saw the guy that assaulted me? No normal person gets angry about that. And if it's your birthday and you don't want to deal with it, you just leave it alone. Or you can come out and ask me what's up. We can have a good time together. Obviously, I'm open to it because I came to your party. And instead, I was holding back tears on the balcony because I was just basically having to pretend to be normal. Going from seeing Dawn to being happy that I'm around these people the same day after. That, having to like gaslight myself into these people that like give a shit about me. I was still torn up about the Dawn situation more than I realized at the time. I guess because of how it ended up that we were both at the office was still fresh. Yeah, it was literally the day before. I'm having to sugarcoat things for like grown men that are like being like, my year's been hard. This is your problem. After they've like pretty much covered up my sexual assault and then made it my problem that I was upset about it. I was also a bit anxious for my birthday for other reasons. Yeah, because I didn't think anybody's gonna fucking come, and I was right. I didn't want to make any of this your problem though. I was worried that I'd end up crying, so I was on the balcony a lot looking like I was just vibing out smoking as a guy to collect myself so I wouldn't ruin your party crying, because that is the truth. In hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have come because I hate that it came off as rude. The reason why I came was because I wanted to show you that I cared about you by being there. But I understand now my execution was wrong. God, I'm such a fucking cuck. And it seemed really careless, and I'm sorry about that. Why am I being so gentle for people that have never been that gentle for me? I was telling Rav all night about how I wanted to see you even though I thought I wasn't feeling the best and how I was hoping you were feeling okay, etc. And none of this translated to you because I never said anything to you directly that showed that, and that's my fault. I do believe that, because I was talking to him, like, I really didn't want to go, because I was sad, and I was like, I want to go and see Ryan. And we did, but apparently that wasn't good enough for him. I needed to be on smile mode way harder. A lot of anything I've talked about to anyone else is mostly just stuff I'm still getting over. Not really anything anyone can do about, I think, copium. And it honestly really hurts my feelings that it was brought up to you behind my back in that manner rather than us being able to just check in and talk. I don't recall ever talking to anyone about how I felt without stating the clear intention to talk to both you guys in the same breath, which is true. So having someone take that agency from me is really upsetting because that kind of stuff always comes off as malicious rather than something you do for advice or out of anxiety or anticipation of having a harder conversation. I've also contributed to not being available, though, because I've tried to stay out of both your way as much as possible and keep my focus on work, which probably came across as fucking off and not wanting to talk to y'all, and I apologize for that. They have my number. I think I was probably trying to be less present because I was worried I was distracting you guys from work a lot of the time at the Plex by being in the way already with me and my stuff, and I didn't want to be any more of a burden than I already felt like. And I think it just made me seem more aloof than anything. I'm sorry we weren't able to talk about it until now. I hate to bring things up this way. I know y'all are busy, so I don't expect to be able to talk in person about anything soon. Parentheses, also, it's not very inviting if you think someone is singing antagonistic lol. I'm just like sucking their asshole right now, so they'll give me my stuff at this point. I'm glad to be able to talk about it now. I just hope that with the nature of texting seeming rather cold, what I'm trying to say is coming across as anything but trying to let you know I've not meant to cause any hurt, and I'm sorry if I did. Sad face. You can have all this text for digestion reasons. Screenshotted text, keep the text man away. Matt said, how long was this? A day later, I think? Yeah, they didn't respond for a whole day. My last response was on the 24th, and this is at August 26th, 3 p.m. Matt said, in terms of not saying hello or goodbye, it really isn't anything more than just spacing out and being wrapped up in our own worlds. That just doesn't mean anything. Like, talking about your coworker best friend versus the people you have staying at your office that is a house. Two different things. What a stupid sentence. Ryan and I don't even say hey to each other half the time. To all of us, you guys seem incredibly closed off and quiet, which is totally okay. But when you're being distant and we don't know why, I'm not sure what you expect back from us. You don't know why? Either they're lying or they just have never listened to a word any of us have said. Rav multiple times has gotten the magnum opus line from Matt himself, including one time at a round one, outside of a round one, when we were all hanging out and he like pulled them aside. He said that to multiple people. And he's gonna say, we don't know what you expect from us. Okay. As for how we handled this in a corporate head-ass way, you need to understand that this isn't just a friendship issue, but a work issue. You are staying in our place of work. So if you were a better manager and a boss, you would have had an end date for us. Like, that's why we left, because we weren't being told today, and we were so scared of how unpredictable these people were without trying to communicate with us, that we're just going to end up without, like, they're just going to say, hey, you guys got to go. How are we supposed to know? Yeah, it was corporate head-ass. You're our friend. You don't need Jim to say that. He's not the boss. You're saying that as if Jim is the boss. Like Jim was hired to be able to communicate things for us. What is he, a fucking clairvoyant? We're your friends that are staying in the room you play games in, dumbass. Like, what do you mean? Jim had offered to talk to you guys for us since we had already done it in the past. When? About what? Show me proof. Like, please. I would love to. It would make me feel better in my heart to know that you guys have tried to be a good friend once and be like, hey, are you guys good? Because if you think you said that, I don't think you did. I think you said that. I think you, in your head, said the equivalent of, hey, you good? But it was probably like, hey, when are you guys getting out? Or when are you guys coming back? Or something like that. Like I said, the only vague thing we had was like the middle of August. And we had gotten kicked out happily by then. Because we were like, we can have our stuff gone. They were like, sure, happy travels. Just fine, cool. But like, don't bring up friendship issues if you're gonna do that. Don't bring up not being corporate head ass if you're gonna do that. Because that's just like, I just got laid off of the fucking show or some shit. Like, viewers didn't like me. I'm getting voted off the island. Like, I have no warning of this. That like, what you expect when someone is like not happy with you staying somewhere is like someone to sit you down and be like, hey, is there like a time you plan on leaving? Not a fucking text message with a guy you don't know that well that made out with you and your friend who is not talking. What the fuck am I gonna do in that situation? I mean, Rav's a talkative guy, but most of these group chats, I just don't have any words in, or maybe one message, because I have nothing to say to any of these people. The only people I wanted to talk to the whole time was Matt and Ryan, and the only reason why they found out that I said anything else besides to them was because Leighton was the only other guy I talked to. But everything's my fault, though. You know, I'm fine with being so fucked up in the head that bad things happen. But I can't understand being so, like, uncared for that as a friend that no one has ever, like, checks in on you. Like, if someone had checked in on me, I think I could have, like, been like, oh, I should go home, you know? Like, anything. Because I have a home in Nashville I could go to. But by the time it was obvious, because they hadn't communicated to us, when it became obvious without communication that this was not going to work ever, I was too broke to go back home. I had to buy all my stuff back. It just wasn't an option anymore. And then even if I wanted to just leave town, all my stuff was still at the Plex. So I was trapped, homeless. The only option I would have had is if I had a friend that would have let me stay with them, which I did do for a few days. Granted, we did have less money at this point, so it compounded the issues, but more issues where it was a picture of a different place type thing, and you go there and it's not the right one or seems very sketchy, just mostly shit like that. But also the days that we were there at our friends, we were mostly just kind of recovering because we were not having a good time. It was, Jim had offered to talk to you guys for us since he had already done in the past. We were also in the group chat so we could talk too. If you were crashing on my couch at my house, obviously I would talk to you one-on-one. But we saw this as a work-related issue because you're in our office. I just don't think anyone wanted to deal with it alone, and no one wanted to be the bad guy. We're trying to best run our business. I hope you're able to see where we're coming from. Is that why you guys don't work and make videos? Because you're trying to do what's best for your business? Because I definitely see how that's working. I understand that both of you have been through a ton this year, and I really feel for you. It's been a shitty year for everyone. Just had to add that in. Just about, when it's about you, you don't say anything about me, but when it's about me, you gotta say something about you. You just have to. We really do care about you as friends if that hasn't been obvious with the support we've consistently given you by letting us live somewhere that was full of trash and people and no room and making us feel uncomfortable about it and then making us feel uncomfortable about getting assaulted and then not talking to us while coming to work every day. I'm sorry that miscommunications have happened. Ryan teamed in also. It's very obvious that these messages, you see the time, Friday, 3:18, and Ryan's message were coordinated because Matt's is so long, it seems like it's like half Ryan's words. 3:18, he sends that. 3:25, Ryan sends his response. So they were typing them at the same time. Just obvious what's going on from, I just live there. I know what you guys do all day. You're just both sitting in the office looking at each other's phones like, this looks good. Ryan said, don't you think the I won't tolerate it being treated like a child is a little far reaching? Y'all consistently left messes out or in our fridge, parentheses, rotting food in the kitchen and fridge, bags of trash sitting out, etc. It's not about being treated like a child. It's about acting like an adult and respecting the place we were happy to lend to you, which again, is a place of work for 5 other people. Hello? Maybe you shouldn't be inviting people to stay at your work then. Isn't that your responsibility? Make sure that that's something you can handle or not? We did not leave messes in their fridge. I order food at dinner time or later because I would stay up a lot when no one was around so I could enjoy being normal. Order late night food, fall asleep, take it out the next day. Or you know what? Fuck it. If it did sit, it sat with the piles of trash that were beyond anything I could ever make myself. I'm talking up to here, up to my waist, trash cans piled over with trash, more trash, because apparently they only liked Leighton taking out the trash. It makes it easier if only one person does it. I remember feeling insane when I saw that because I remember that I wasted days of work to clean up after them. And he just accused us of making all the messes. It's bro, do you just get amnesia after you eat and walk away and think we did it? Because that's just not the case. They kept it so tight. They were so mad they weren't talking to us, and this is apparently the culmination of their qualms. Is that birthday, the corporate head ass thing is not right, even though I got an employee to throw my friends out. Getting mad that I got mad about the Don situation. Rav basically just ignored Ryan. I almost forgot his name. And said, I appreciate your perspective on the hello goodbye stuff, and I'm sorry that y'all felt we were distant. Aside from the last day we saw you, I think I was cordial to everybody, and I treated y'all as I would anyone else. It's not like I carry around any resentments or ill will towards y'all, and I apologize if my conduct has ever been put into doubt. Rav's too nice. I personally think there's nothing wrong with expecting your friends to not delegate what, in my opinion, is a simple communication when you see us all the time. I'm sure you didn't mean any harm by it, but it hurt regardless, and I'd be fucking up if I just kept that to myself. With all that said, I'm very sorry that we put you in the uncomfortable position of having to ask us politely to leave in the first place. I wish we moved out sooner. I felt incredibly guilty about it for a minute now, because we were. That's part of why we were suicidal, is because we were like, why the fuck is like life fucking us to where we're not getting a place now? My ring lights are attracting bugs. We've always given y'all the benefit of the doubt on any and all matters when we weren't sure how you felt, and at the time of reaching out to y'all, we were confident that a conversation would help clear any awkwardness between us. I like to think much of it now has. I hope you feel the same way. And guess what? They didn't respond. You know, the rest is definitely not responding to that. They did not care. We can wrap this up from here, I think. There's only so much I can talk about. My brain being broken, and I've been doing it for 5 hours. I think I'm running a marathon right now. I had so much stuff, I couldn't fit it all in one trip to go, so I had to drop off some of it at a storage unit. We moved to Airbnb in Hollywood in September, and September was the last month I stayed in LA until I was finally able to get back home. Ethan helped me with my laptop. I got my iPad back. We did streams for Rav's equipment. It was his, I don't remember. He got a Mac. He got his MacBook back because his was less expensive than mine, so it was easier to raise. Actually, one thing I never mentioned was I was robbed on August 10th and had, just solely from my post, enough money sent from followers and like fans between the both of us, amazing, that he was able to go buy a new laptop first. We go in, and because he's from the UK, oftentimes during the summer we would have this problem where card readers wouldn't work, and sometimes it just wouldn't let him get stuff. So we go to the Apple store, pick out the laptop he was gonna get, go out and take it to the guy, and he can't buy it. So we have no choice but to leave. And when we get back, I got robbed again. Somebody had opened up the soft top of my Jeep and grabbed my backpack. And the only reason why I even had my stuff with me was because I didn't have a choice. When I got robbed the first time, I didn't have a choice to have my stuff with me. They told us they wanted us gone before we left. So I took more stuff, and because I didn't want to, I felt so bad. I felt like trash that we were getting asked to leave somewhere. That will never make someone feel good. I was trying to take as much autonomy over it as possible and ended up getting my stuff stolen. Buy it back with money I was so thankful to get donated to me, and it was stolen right back. Ever since November when that happened, I stopped tweeting nearly as much. So by the time August rolled around and more shit had happened, I didn't know what to say online. How was I going to say anything that was happening to me online without saying everything? I've been recording for 5 hours, so I understand why I didn't, but it made it so hard to talk because anything I would have said that wasn't that would have felt like I was lying, because that's all I wanted to say. I'm thankful that I have people that care about me, whether or not I know them or not. I'm online people, in real life people, even if it's just a few, it was enough for me to make it. Stuff like that will make you realize who your real ones are very quickly. I don't know. There's a few things. I'm mad that I let someone make me feel so insignificant when they just didn't care about me. I didn't get my stuff out of the office until, all of my stuff out of the office until September 6th. August 31st, I coordinated that day between Leighton, since he was the easiest person to talk to go grab my stuff. When I get there, it's incredibly hard to get in, and all of a sudden, I go to the door. They had, since we left to Seattle and came back, had reinstalled the Ring camera for me and Rav. So while we were trying to go get our stuff, they decided that was a good idea to put a Ring camera in. So what? I guess we couldn't get our stuff? While we were extremely down bad and homeless, had no things. And when I'm there trying to get a hold of someone because Jim isn't answering me, I checked my text a little late. Matt sent me this. Is this a friend to you? What are you guys doing at the office? Leave the key at the front door. I didn't see these texts until 10 minutes later. And within those 10 minutes, I had already been to the door, and Matt turned on the app from his phone and was like, "What are you doing here?" So I get scared to shit because I've never seen a ring on this door, and then all of a sudden Matt's being like speaking to me in this like crazy like rough voice. Don't know if he was lit or what, but it doesn't matter either. It was very crazy. I don't know if he thought it was Rev and he was trying to talk to me like that, or if he was really just, I don't know. It was very weird. So I started freaking out because I was the only one packing because Rav didn't feel comfortable being there. But instead, I get freaked out and I just message him a bunch. I didn't have anywhere else to get my replacement things sent, so I was still getting like backpacks and work clothes sent to the office that I was like, hey, I need to pick these up. Next day at almost 7 p.m. Hey, I'm really sorry about my tone. Wasn't sure what was up and Leighton never told us. I appreciate that. Would love to talk sometime. Right now is probably the worst time for me, but down the line for sure. That was a lie, by the way. That was September 1st, and he was just lying to me. September 4th. Hey, sorry to bother you. Just wanted to ask, to check in and ask if I could grab some of my stuff from the office. We'll be shooting some pics and videos today at an abandoned water park a couple hours away, so I want to grab my camera and Amazon stuff I got sent there. Hope you're doing okay. Yeah, I was asking for permission to get my camera like a day after. I said, ended up not coming over when I mentioned it. Would anytime today be a good time to come by and grab some stuff? I can come by myself. He responded, yeah, I think Jim will be there for a while. Just text him just to be sure. I just bounced and saw this. That was at 4 p.m., 9, almost 10 p.m. Coordinated with Jim. Thank you. I just left a little bit ago. I grabbed everything and threw away a lot of stuff that was in and around the garage. Thank you so much for letting us stay here. Hope you're having a good night. When we were gone, he started talking to me more, and I felt like it's easy to be like, oh, we're normal now. Thank you. Take care. What's y'all's plans right now? I say, gonna stay at an Airbnb to work at while figuring out a living situation. He just didn't respond until I told him you have a 7 days to live dream about him for reference. So the next time we talk after that, September 26th. And at this rate, I'm nearing the last week and a half of my stay in Hollywood. Matt is a big telescope guy. I don't know if he is actually, but I thought of him, so I sent him a thing. It's a thing I do when I'm trying to be a friend. And I'm a simp, I guess. I don't know. Sucks. He said, yes, I'm so excited. I'm gonna look at it. How have you been? Let's hang soon. I said, I've been better than we last talked. I'd love to see you and catch up. Let me know when you're free and I can drive over to your place and we can meet up and do something fun. How have you been? I've been better, trying to reevaluate a lot about my life and myself after the last 6 months, and it's been hard, but overall positive. Would love to hang. He just kept saying would love to hang, and so we just kept saying it back and forth. He didn't mean it, but the AX SuperMega video I wasn't in I was replaced by the girl he cheated on his girlfriend of 4 years with. So not only did he cheat on his girlfriend and broke up with her, and then she found out after because Jim was living with the new girl. Well, she's still friends with Jim. Like, they're both friends with Jim. He also takes a break with the new girlfriend he's with to basically solicit a sex worker girl that he was into to come live in LA and move from across the US before he decided that he wanted to go back to the girlfriend that he was just with. So if I were him, I would probably be reevaluating my life as well. I understood so much when I learned that, because if not for that, I wouldn't know what the fuck he was doing the whole time. He was like, I'm busy. I don't want to talk. I'm doing stuff. After September, I kind of get out of LA for a while. I lost my wallet around this time. Didn't have a wallet for a long time. So I had to plan a drive back to Nashville because I tried to reorder my a temp ID from Nashville and it never arrived before the Airbnb was up. So I just didn't have any choice but to drive back home, which is fine, but because at least I had time to plan it. But that was interesting. I had to drive from LA to Nashville. It's 2,000 something miles with no ID. So that was fun. But I don't know. I feel like that's mostly important stuff. At the end of the day, me talking about this isn't for a gotcha. It's not for woe is me. I'm just talking about stuff that happened to me because it's important to me to get this off my chest. I've been holding on to this weight for over a year for no reason. What loyalty do these people have to me that I need to be like, I need to protect them? What did they do for me? They let me stay at their place and then made me feel weird about it after they were like, hey, your assaulter's gonna be here when I got there. Like, I don't know. Then they word stuff like, I have to feel like I owe them something. I don't owe them anything. They weren't charging me rent. They said I could stay there. You know, if he didn't like me there, he could have done a lot of different things. He could have just opened his mouth and talked to me. That's what adults do. Contrary to popular belief, adults communicate and are mature and don't just leave everything to text and their employees and act like that's normal and gaslight people about it and gaslight people about like being upset about your reaction to assault. Just what a letdown. And like, I've been carrying all this bitterness for like a year. No wonder I felt like poisoned and like I'm dying all the time. Like, I'm not expecting any sort of like response, negative, positive. I don't care, honestly. None of this matters to me except for the fact that I can say this. I haven't been able to. That's not fair to me. Why was that okay that I couldn't say anything? Why did so many people allow that? Why did I have so many friends that were cool with that when they found out what was going on? They're just like, okay, and pretend like nothing was going on. Still doing it. And you know what Matt did before Crater Clash this year? He texted me, how's Tennessee? As if he's not the reason I'm there. And when I didn't respond, he took me off his Instagram close friends. Didn't unfollow me. He just like didn't want me to see the stuff he really has to say. Which, like, I don't care. It's just like so obvious that like what these guys are doing. They do it at the same time. They do the same kind of stuff. They did it to Rav. They don't ever have intentions of being friends with us ever again. They don't care. They're trying to placate us so we don't say anything. Because you know what I found out after Creator Clash? The fact that I didn't talk to anybody. The only person I talked to was Jim, who came up and physically walked in front of me, said, hey, Lex, and gave me a hug, and I hugged him back. And I was like, hey. Because at the end of the day, Jim's just doing his fucking job. Not excusing him at all. It's just, he's not the boss. He wasn't the first person I told. So, you know, if Matt had come up to hug me, I probably would have been like, what the fuck are you doing, man? And I usually don't have that in me. But finding out after you don't talk to someone being Matt, that like you hear people were whispering, Lex is gonna say something, when I had no intention of saying something at this time. Like the last month has been completely focused on me being better because I've had to spend that much time doing it. It's been not fun. Nobody wants to be broken down so badly that they have to spend half a year building themselves back up. Cool that I did it enough that I can even do this, but honestly, I haven't slept and I spent like at least 15 hours of today just like procrastinating starting this. How could I make this up? How could I make so much stuff up? At most, it's like, why did you mention that? Or why did you mention this? And honestly, everything's relevant to me because everything has affected me and I've not been able to talk about any of it. And you know what? The fact that I haven't been able to talk about it has been used against me for other people's benefit. I'm not benefiting from not talking about this because you know what that means? When I'm not online and I'm not able to post, I'm not able to do stuff that I tell people that's what they pay me for. You know what happens? People sub to me and people want to spend money and buy stuff from me and they don't get it delivered. And they're like, Lex must be like a scammer, or Lex must be like bad at her job, or Lex must be like, why am I subbing to a OnlyFans? Why am I subbing to a Patreon and not getting the things that says it has? This is beyond Don, Matt, Ryan. This is my livelihood. Like, the way I make money currently has been like irrevocably changed. I make less than half of what I did last year. And I'm not necessarily being like, I'm fine with working back for it. I've been having a good time actually. It gives me goals after so long of not having any. They actually feel achievable. So that's the one thing I have going for me. It's just, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have to have suffered like this, not be able to afford a place to live because I got assaulted. What did I do to deserve that? I didn't do anything to deserve that. So why did all this happen because of that? It's just, when I was crying earlier about the call out I made when I was 17, partially it's because it just happened again without me telling anyone. Instead of me telling people and people being like, I don't believe you, blah, 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 I told my friends, and instead of telling me they didn't believe me, they acted just like they didn't, and without saying it. And that's just as bad. I had no support from them. They said they believed me and then gave me no support. That's just not what that means. Like, they think that them letting me rest my head at their office was them extending their arm fully out to me. It's just, they appreciate me as much as I could keep my mouth shut. Meanwhile, you know, they get to talk shit about me all the time. Ryan unfollowed me recently. Kelly, Foolish Kia, she unfollowed me recently. The artist that they got to do Don's art style, June technically was the last time he did any work for them. And after that, Kelly got rehired and still had Don credited until November of 2022. How am I supposed to not believe that that was on purpose? Kelly has a distinct art style. She used to draw in it before. The characters can be drawn differently, and yet you wanted Don's from some other artist whose art style is completely different. What did you tell her? What does she think she knows about me that is like damning? Because I assume that's why she unfollowed me. She was talking to me last year, told me I'm sorry when my dog died. If you look it up on Twitter, that's the last time she talked to me. And all of a sudden is like acting weird. Like, I know that Kelly and Ryan and Justin all hang out. It doesn't matter. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of for the fact that people don't know my story. And it's not for them. It's everybody that has been like, "Are you good?" on my pictures that look like I'm having a bad time. Everybody that's been like, "What's up with you? Why did you go homeless?" And I didn't respond to them. I read every single comment asking if I'm okay and just couldn't respond. So I don't think it's fair that other people get to talk about what happened to me, and I don't, so I am. And at this rate, it doesn't matter what happens because of it. I think I feel like so much better already after just having talked to myself for 5 hours. I think at the end of the day, what matters is things going back to normal. I feel like I can finally breathe, knowing that aside from speculating about Kelly and Ryan, knowing that Don was going around telling people it was just rough sex, what happened between us, using people's lack of knowledge for his benefit, seeing artists that I've been mutuals with for years unfollow me that I can only assume, because they're also friends with Don, that he said the same thing. They don't get to lie anymore. Rough sex, that's cool. That makes you cool. That just makes me a pussy for not liking it or whatever. But saying no should be enough. If I don't want to do something and I'm physically resisting you, it should be good enough. But no, it's just rough sex because you want to kind of admit something weird happened, but you don't want to talk about like you being a sex pest or anything, or that you just don't know how to treat women. I'm just glad I won't have to be talking to him again. I don't know still if I wish I had said nothing, which is one of the sadder parts, because I shouldn't feel like so shamed by everything that came along with talking about it that I feel like I should feel like I shouldn't have said anything. But I do. Like I said, the one thing that is making me feel better is the fact that I needed this. I need to tell people that care about me, because they don't care about me, obviously. It took me a year to find that out. They don't care about me. But there are people who do, who would really want to know that this happened to me and that would be really upset that it did, or just be like, I understand now. And that's really what I want more than anything, is to have like my past behavior looked at where it was seen as weird before, where I was in my head giving out fucking cries for help that I couldn't follow up on. Now you know. I don't know how long this is gonna be, but if you've watched this whole thing, good God, cool. It feels like we just came out of war together. Pretty sure I got everything. Sorry if it was jumbled. My brain is jumbled. At least you know why now. Like, if you heard anything about this and you saw me acting any sort of way, you'd be like, of course she's acting. I'm happy now, I think. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want an apology. I just don't want to be around them anymore. They'll probably try and say they did a bunch of stuff and X, Y, and Z, and they tried talking when they didn't, and all this stuff. And I just showed you a bunch of examples where they just say stuff that sounds nice, so you stop saying hard stuff for them to hear. And my expectation, the only expectation I have, is that if they respond to this, it's going to be along those lines. Besides just like, I don't feel that way, which is like, I don't believe you. You're not trustworthy people anymore. So to say that you feel a certain way is not trustable. Like, in the same phone call, you're asking me if it was okay to hang out with a guy that sexually assaulted me. Like, you're not that guy. You're not the guy that I can trust. You're not one of those. I mean, there's a reason why they made Leighton sign when they fired him, So we couldn't talk about this that I'm talking about right now. Because they said magnum opus for a reason, baby. Very cool. Magnum opus. Thanks for listening. Hopefully better days are coming up soon.